So there's a few ways to answer that question. And I think a lot of people want to answer that question firstly with something that's important, which is if you don't get God right, you're teaching heresy, you're misleading people. All that's true. That's important. That's a reason to get this right. If you don't get it right, you're going to mislead yourself. You're going to mislead other people. But there's a more positive way to talk about that. And getting the doctrine of the Trinity right is important because that helps us to worship the God that we love. Doctrine is ultimately about worship. It's not just about right statements, even though we need to be concerned with right statements. It's ultimately about our love for the God that saved us, that made us, and that we will dwell with forever in the new heavens and the new earth. So when we talk about the doctrine of the Trinity, we're talking about the very fundamental part of our faith, which is the God that we love, the God that we serve, the God we worship. And that's a positive reason to speak rightly about the doctrine of the Trinity. It helps us to worship well, to worship correctly, to work, and not just to worship correctly in the sense of right and wrong in terms of doctrinal statements, but getting those doctrinal statements right actually helps us to see God as he is in order to worship him, right? So when I talk about the fact that God is one God in three persons who does all these things as one God, as the one God, that's a concept that I can't comprehend fully, which is exactly what should prompt me to worship. This God is someone different, something different than me, which is why he deserves to be worshiped. Thinking about God as he is and as he's revealed himself to us doesn't just make sure we don't fall into error. It actually prompts us to worship. And I think this is something that evangelicals often miss when we talk about doctrine and when we talk about what leads us to worship. We often talk about right doctrine and right worship in such a way that it's really more about making sure we don't fall off of this cliff or that cliff doctrine. That's important, right? But there's this positive movement towards God to push us towards worshiping the Triune God. In terms of worship, we often focus on the benefits of salvation when we worship, right? What Christ has done for us on the cross, and therefore I'm saved, I'm redeemed, I'm not condemned, and all of that's true, and all of that's good, and that's a reason to worship. But even more fundamentally is the fact of who God is. And you don't often hear a lot of, we're getting more songs like this, but you don't often hear a lot of songs about who God is. He's the one God who exists in three persons. We talk more about the benefits of salvation to me, which are a reason to worship. There's a more fundamental fact, which is who God is. So when we talk about getting the doctrine of the Trinity right, we're really talking about knowing God in himself, in who he is and who he's revealed himself to be to us in Scripture. And that means that should prompt us to worship.